GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
From wherever we decide studios, broadcasted live on iTunes, Spreaker, and worldwide, this is the Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast with your host, the producer, Pat G. The G stands for Gangsta. And now kick back and get ready for the eargasms.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. It is Sunday morning. It is another edition of TTRP, the Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast. You know how we do. We are on the road to WrestleMania. Pat G, Stan Fury, you know how we do it. Talk about all pro wrestling all the time. WWE, AEW, ROH / AEW. Essentially, that's what it is. Because we have a big weekend coming up next weekend. It is WrestleMania weekend. You have the Hall of Fame. You have Supercard of Honor. You have SmackDown. You have Dynamite. You have Rampage. You have WrestleMania. But to start off first, recently Peacock, the home of the WWE, Peacock Original, set out the documentary series called Evil, basically showcasing 8 villains within the WWE universe and showing their journey from where they started to where they are now, or where they ended, because some of the episodes deal with legends. Dan, I know you've watched all eight episodes. What's your overall take on the series?
So I think WWE going outside of the box to kind of do deep dives into some of these like iconic characters and the motives behind it, but even going so far as to bring in like licensed clinical psychologists to help break it down, or outside personalities that could tell a different spin on it as being an outsider, so to speak, watching this the lives of these characters. One of the cool parts is some of the behind the scenes stuff is really interesting, especially when you get to like the Stephanie McMahon episode, because they show one of the cool parts about this is the writers meeting when they pitched the Stephanie McMahon getting captured by the Undertaker during the Ministry days. And you just see this look on her face like, oh shit, I have to be on television. And like, there are these cool moments where they have new interviews from different people, especially with like the Hollywood Hogan episode, which kicks off the series. They do a deep dive, man, and it is outstanding.
Yeah, that like I've watched the first 5 episodes, which dealt with Hulk Hogan, Sasha Banks, Randy Orton, the Brothers of Destruction, and that. And I love the take that they're doing. Like the Miz episode, I enjoyed, because like they showed where he came from, because there are a lot of wrestling fans nowadays that don't know that Mike Mizanin got his start on the Real World, because
some of them don't even know what the Real World was like originally.
Yep. Like some of them don't, like a good chunk of wrestling fans don't know what the Real World was, because they weren't old enough to be into that or know what it is. Same thing with Sasha Banks. Like the journey that Sasha Banks took to where she's at now, like going to wrestling school, wrestling on the independents, and you saw some of that footage, and like some of the footage, and it was mind blowing. And it's like, wow, really? And then even when I love how they, with the Sasha Banks one, they talked about Charlotte and Bayley and Becky as well, because they are part of that story.
Yeah. And, another cool thing on top of this, I'm going to talk specifically about the Sasha Banks one right now.
Yeah.
I'm sitting back watching this story as a fan. And while I'm watching it as a fan, she was in Northeast Promotions, and I'm seeing her in her independent footage wrestling against people that I was in the same locker rooms with. So you're sitting here and you're like, holy crap, like it is possible. Like you can get to that big of a stage, right? With, from the independents, it is possible. And like her story, like you said, they did a deep dive about even their like childhoods and the way that they were raised. Like the Randy Orton one, we've heard Randy Orton's story before, maybe not this raw though,
No.
and like certainly not this raw, because you got into the, his, childhood traumas and the fact that his dad was not around and how that changes a person. And then, him really being an asshole, admittedly. And you're just going through this journey, and the way that they produced it. And with John Cena, go figure, the biggest baby face in the business.
Yeah, being narrating the series.
Yeah, narrating and executive producing this series. And, especially considering with the recent news of Triple H's retirement, you go back and you watch the Stephanie McMahon episode, and you can't help but realize she got into this business in a storyline that eventually led to her becoming the biggest villain in the company.
Yep.
For a time being, with her, like the 2000 run of Triple H with the Helmsley McMahon era. Dude, that's childhood memories right there.
Oh,
and absolutely. That's how long she's been around.
Yeah.
Like childhood memories, and she's still the main villain on the main roster.
Yep. Like, and this is the thing with this is, like, that Stephanie McMahon episode I'm looking forward to, because it's going to include Triple H. And of course, Triple H the other day on the Stephen A show announced his retirement from pro wrestling and discussed the health issues that he was going through. And what's funny is I'm glad that it happened. I'm glad that he finally had that interview where he made that announcement, because it shut up the internet wrestling fanboys, essentially.
Yes.
Because they were always like, there was the reports and everything that like Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard took over NXT 2.0, and Triple H was removed from like his duties, and the Triple H is going to leave, and this, that, and a third. And people were like, no, the man's having health issues. Like, and then the fact, like, he did the interview with Stephen A. Smith and pretty was like, yo, I was basically like almost dead. Like, yeah. Like, and the thing is very, like, when WWE released a statement that Triple H had a cardiac event, there weren't really a lot of details. And
no.
That's when, and this interview like solidified everything and goes, okay, he's retired. He can't wrestle like ever again, because it's like of the heart issues that he had. And he's like, and when he said that it was essentially he faced like what they essentially called the Widowmaker. I'm like, holy shit, how are you not dead? Like, how did you not die?
Well, actually, I don't, oh my God, I just actually, my first actually ever on this show. I feel bad that I just did that, Paggy.
Yeah.
That's like, people don't realize I really try and not be the actually guy. If you look back at Kevin Smith's heart attack that he had, that was the Widowmaker as well. So it goes to show, once again, we keep talking about like the advances in medical science, but like Triple H is around because this procedure was possible. And you look at it and it's like, for those people who don't know what a Widowmaker is, it's a 90% or greater blockage, essentially in your artery going over your chest. Yep. And it's this one blockage where, let's see, in 100% cases of, in a 80% cases of an occlusion like that, you're dead.
Yep.
Like you're done. You're absolutely dead. And when you have that blockage, it essentially creates this giant, the aorta going across it essentially like puffs it up and shit. So like, and it blocks it. Like you can't breathe. Triple H was talking about having pneumonia and everything in the interview. That probably was exacerbating it. So we probably just thought that's what it was. No, his heart was literally getting crushed by the blockage of blood. And that's what causes it. And that's what caused Kevin's, partially, that's what Kevin Smith had. So they're able to get past it. But the fact that it's like, dude almost died and no one knew about it. Like we had heard kind of stories about it, but holy shit, it became suddenly real on the Stephen A show.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I enjoyed. Like that's what I enjoyed, because it was one of those things of everybody had their rumors and talks and opinions, and then what's funny is the flip side of this, and I'm glad Triple H got through that and got the medical help, and he's doing fine, and he's back to work and recruiting talent and everything. But like a couple of years ago, it was Triple H versus The Undertaker in Hell in the Cell with Shawn Michaels as guest referee, and they called it the end of an era.
Yeah.
When Triple H made that announcement, that truly was the end of the era right there. Like that to me, when Triple H made his announcement that he was officially retired, right there, that ends the Attitude Era completely.
Yeah.
Like, because there's no one from the Attitude Era that outside of doing like one-off appearances were continuously still wrestling.
I mean, you could Dustin, maybe.
You know what? But that's the thing. Like, I don't like. I'm like, yes, Dustin was part of the Attitude Era with Goldust, but he wasn't like synonymous with it. Like people, like for the general part, like the Attitude Era, it like people that are like synonymous with it: Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Triple H.
All right, I feel you there.
Like nothing against Dustin Rhodes and the career that man has had. But he wasn't one of the main focuses. Like he accentuated the start of the Attitude Era.
Oh, but God, 96, yeah.
But he wasn't part of when it was really rocking and rolling.
So now that we have the announcement, a week ago we did the Scott Hall passing, and it's like, holy crap, now we're talking about Triple H retiring. So let's get into the weeds here, Padgy. Favorite Triple H moment?
MSG, the night he returned from the quad surgery. That yes. Granted, I was not there in person, but the eruption when his music hit and that eruption of the crowd, that was one of the biggest pops that you will ever hear in pro wrestling.
You're never gonna okay. There have been wrestlers who have returned, like the Edge pop in 2000. Okay, that one was a genuine, raw, guttural. Like that was more like a shock, a surprise.
Yeah,
because it was.
Yeah.
With Triple H's, they had built up the promos so well, leading into that with U2 being the music, and they had done such a phenomenal presentation since they announced he was coming back. I mean, you go back and you look at that time, holy crap, was that a moment? And you felt that through the television too. Like you were watching that and you were like, we are hearing MSG just erupt. Yep. Like Jordan walked out on the court. That's the feel it had.
Yep, that's the absolute feel that had. Like there's moments in pro wrestling where there's a pop or the audience reaction. Like you said, Edge at the Royal Rumble in 20 last year or 2 years ago or whatever. And then when CM Punk returned, the pop that he got when he made his triumphant return. The Adam Cole and Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson showing up. Like or the pop this year at the Royal Rumble with Ronda Rousey. Like, there's times where there's surprises and there's stuff that you know is coming, but you still react to it and you get such a reaction from it. And Triple H had that a couple of times. And for the fact that man had the career that he did, where he started, being in WCW, lingering as like a developmental like jobber, essentially, as terrorizing, which I love the terrorizing. I love the name. And then him going to WWE and playing the blue blood Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and then transitioning into the game Triple H and the King of Kings and the Cerebral Assassin. Like it's one of those things of, we are now in 2022. Triple H is officially retired. Undertaker is getting inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. The passing of Scott Hall. It's getting to a point to where we are heading to where people are like parents were in like the 80s and 90s, kind of, where all the people that we grew up with as far as pro wrestling are now, their careers are over, they're retiring or they passed away or whatever. Where like in the early 80s and even early 90s, you had like our parents and being for our wrestling fans, you had the days of like Bob Backlund and Vern Gagne and Bruno Sammartino and that like we are now where our like parents were 40 years ago, where all the people that they grew up watching were winding down, retiring, or passing away or whatever due to age or whatever. Now we're at that point because all the people that we've grown up with are getting to that point. And what solidifies it is the Undertaker being inducted.
Yeah, and like you look at it, okay, so today, this week, like 2 days ago, was the 30th anniversary of the first time Triple H had a match in WWE television.
Yep.
Okay, so Triple H's career from contract to heart attack has been 30 years with this company.
Yep.
And you look at that in that time frame, think of all the wrestlers that have come and gone in 30 years.
Yeah. Like when Triple H's first ever match with the WWE, I was 9 years old.
Yeah. And like you saw these vignettes with him and you were like, man, whatever. This dude looks
snob asshole.
Yeah,
what the hell?
This douchebag. Look at who wears riding boots that high. He's not even riding a horse. And I'm thinking of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And then lo and behold, years later, right? Like the dude is helping to reinvent the pro wrestling business. Yep. And he then go on even further to having one of the best Hall of Fame careers there was. And you know what? He just happened to be able to help build an empire. And Triple H is as responsible for the end of WCW as anybody. Hands down, bar none. I will say that shit.
Absolutely.
Like Triple H as a heel in that late 99 through 2000 run, into 2001, was one of the best heel runs.
Because because at that time, that late 98, early 99 into 2000, 2001, Triple H was the guy because Steve Austin's career was winding down. The Rock was starting his transition into Hollywood.
Yep.
You still had The Undertaker, but The Undertaker was kind of a attraction type deal at that point, because even then he wasn't The Undertaker. He was like the American badass and kind of doing the striker gimmick a little bit.
Yep.
And Undertaker was there as like one of the main guys, but like Triple H was the face. Like
he was the main heel.
Yeah.
Like
he was the main heel, and then his influence bringing in Batista and Randy Orton with Evolution.
Yeah, he had an eye for talent, I think, even then, because if you look at what he did with those two guys, it was almost a case study and experiment to see, do I have a couple of outliers here? Do I have a couple of guys who are so talented I can get, they can get themselves over? And it's like, he was able to do that. And also then him transitioning down to NXT.
Yep.
And, the work he did down there. Look at guys like Seth Rollins, who comparably so, and I could take some heat for this. We can actually debate it. The closest thing to Triple H that we have today is Seth Rollins.
Oh no, I'm not. I completely agree with you.
And I thought about this the other day. How many times has he changed monikers? How many times has he changed gimmicks? It's like the Shield, the Architect, the Beast Slayer, the King Slayer. All of these nicknames that he's gotten, and now
the Messiah
and whatever his new gimmick is right now, dude, he's just like Triple H in that he's constantly evolving his character so that it remains relevant. Like people want to see that character have a WrestleMania match this year. It's similar to Triple H. Every time Triple H thought his gimmick was getting a little stale, just like The Undertaker, he'd reinvent it a little bit, change something here or there. And it's like, look at DX. When he was in DX with Shawn Michaels and the DX Army, okay, that was a completely different Triple H a year later when he was starting to hit bitches with sledgehammers.
Yeah, like this is the funny thing. This is the hilarious thing with Triple H was like Triple H for all intents and purposes like changed his moniker and everything, but he was so influential in careers and like Randy Orton, Batista. He was an influential antagonist with Daniel Bryan, and leading to that, like his little feud with CM Punk, like he stayed relevant enough to give the rub to certain people when they absolutely needed it.
And that was, enough people have like talked smack about Triple H over the years. Some of them are still doing it right now on Twitter. And that's fine. That's well and dandy. You're entitled to your opinion on what you think of this dude's performance. But to just dismiss any of that because, you have some like preconceived notion. It's like, no, dude. Like, I think you need to go back in your way back machine. Austin and Rock were fighting who in order to get over and make that championship big. In the early 2000s, he did the same thing with Batista and Randy Orton.
Yep.
In the 2010s, he did the same thing with Daniel Bryan and CM Punk and Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns.
Yep.
And, you can directly look at that and say, okay, he is able to get people over in a way like The Undertaker could get a heel over real easy. Any heel. Triple H could get any babyface over.
Oh, absolutely. Like, absolutely. And this is the interesting thing, like with Triple H is I'm glad that he's been taken care of health wise and he's better and everything. Will it suck that we'll never see another Triple H match again? Yes, absolutely. Because I know a lot of people out there, Triple H's matches are boring and they're lethargic, but that was him feeding into the gimmick, like the character he had. Like, he's the cerebral assassin. Like, he's going to be like specific about how he goes about doing a match and what he targets.
He could go out there, okay, and this is the knock on Triple H. He can go out there and look back at the WrestleMania matches that he's had since 2009 with Brock Lesnar. Okay?
Yep.
Or I'm sorry, WrestleMania 29 with Brock Lesnar. Okay, you look at that match. Wasn't it a no holds barred match? Got real violent.
I believe it was. City.
Yeah, right up Brock's alley in order to make Brock look like the monster that they were about to make him starting at the beginning of the year or middle of the year. Okay? Yeah. Then you bring it to the next part. Okay. Daniel Bryan. He put Daniel Bryan over in, what was it, a 40-minute match? Okay. If he was so boring and he was so terrible.
It was Triple H with Shawn Michaels defeating Brock Lesnar with Paul Heyman no holds barred match. Had Triple H lost, he would have been forced to retire.
Yep. All right. And then the Daniel Bryan one went for like 40 minutes.
Which was the following year.
Yep.
WrestleMania 30. And then
he curtain jerked at WrestleMania 30. Let that also be a thing. Yeah. His match with Daniel Bryan was the first match of the show.
Yeah. The first official match of WrestleMania 30 was, like, you had the pre-show with the tag titles, but that was just like as people were still coming in. But like Daniel Bryan, Triple H singles match, Bryan winning was added to the WWE World Heavyweight Championship match later in the night. They went 25 minutes and 58 seconds.
Now, is that bell to bell and not including entrances?
That's the time that's listed. So,
all right, it might be bell to bell because you had the video package.
Yep. Bell to bell was 25 minutes, and so with the video package and the entrances, you're probably looking at 40 minutes. But like bell to bell was 26.
Still long. His matches are boring. Really, if that right there is the measuring stick of boredom, sign me up, dude. I mean, Triple H, you can knock him for all you want. Yeah, he married Stephanie McMahon, but that didn't change the fact that he had a stellar career even before that.
And then if you really look at it, WrestleMania 31 in San Francisco
with Sting,
a no DQ match that went 18 and a half minutes bell to bell. That at that time, so that was 2015, so 7 years ago. So at that time, you had a 56-year-old Sting and Triple H entering that's in his 40s.
Yeah. And they went out there and had a pretty damn fun match.
Yeah. Like this is and then like it was just crazy because then Triple H the following year at WrestleMania 31 had or 33 32. Actually. Yeah.
Did he have a break between 32 and 33?
Let me hold on. I think no 32. It was him versus Roman for the title.
Yes, in Dallas.
Yeah.
Because,
and then 30, and then 33 was him versus Seth in a no DQ match.
Yep.
And then 34 was him and Stephanie versus Angle and Ronda.
Okay, so putting Ronda over.
Putting Ronda over, and then 36, which was the two night one because that was the pandemic.
Where's Dave Bautista in all this? He was Dave Bautista. It was that was in New York City. That was WrestleMania in New York City.
Yeah.
That was 2019.
Yeah. So that was New York City, that one. Yep. Triple H defeating Batista by pinfall.
Yep.
So like Triple H like had a run of like prime WrestleMania matches. So like it was like WrestleMania 35 because he didn't he wasn't in 30 he was helping produce 36.
Okay.
Because 36 was in the performance center for the 2 nights.
Yes. Yep.
Then there was 37 last year, which once again not on the card.
Nope.
Because he's in the back producing. So his last WrestleMania match was 35 against Batista.
And what was Triple H's official last match? Was it like a Saudi match or was it an Australia match?
Because
that's a good question.
So after 2019, Triple H's appearances became more increasingly sporadic. 2020 became the first year he did not wrestle a match since the start of his career. However, he continued to make on-screen appearances in non-wrestling roles. His last on-screen physical altercation was January 11th, 2021, when he brawled with Randy Orton.
Randy Orton got him out. Oh my God, it's the curse of Orton.
That was the last on-screen physical altercation, January 11th, 2021 episode of Raw, when he brawled with Randy Orton. The brawl ended in a no contest after involvement from Alexa Bliss and the Fiend Bray Wyatt. His last official match was Triple H losing to Randy Orton in a match at Super Showdown on June 7th.
Holy shit, the Randy Orton.
Yeah, his match with Orton at Super Showdown would mark his final wrestling match in front of a live audience. So June 7th, 2019.
Wow. I mean, and if you think about it, he lost, right?
I believe he did.
So once again, he went out putting over someone that he respected.
Yeah. Let's see. Nope, that's not okay. Super Showdown, June 7th, 2019. That was Undertaker and Goldberg. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Randy Orton defeated Triple H by pinfall. Because that card also featured the Usos versus the Revival, Rollins versus Corbin for the Universal Championship, the Demon Balor versus Andrade for the IC title, Shane McMahon versus Roman, Braun versus Bobby Lashley, Kofi against Singh, and then Goldberg and Undertaker. And Mansoor winning the 51-man battle royal.
Yes.
So, his last Triple H's last official match was June 7th, 2019. So almost 3 years ago.
Something tells me he had a good run. I don't know.
No.
Maybe it's just me. This kid might be going places.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that this man had a hell of a run. So
yeah, this Levesque guy, I like him.
Yeah, because if you really look at it, he started training with Killer Kowalski in 1990.
But even then, he still, by the time he had his last match, it was a 30-year career.
Yep. So he made his professional debut March 24th, 1992, in the IWF, which was Killer Kowalski's promotion. Then he switched to. Then he was with WCW in '94 to January of '95, and then he debuted April 30th, 1995 on an episode of Wrestling Challenge, defeating Buck Zumoff. Which at that point he was still technically under a no-compete with WCW. Hemsley made his WWE pay-per-view debut at SummerSlam that year, so SummerSlam '95. So, yeah, like the man, he 30-something years with WWF, like WWF, WWE, like crazy. And the thing,
and his first WrestleMania opponent was the Ultimate Warrior.
Yep.
And if you think about it, he's the one that got the Warrior to come back.
Yep.
He's the one that reached out and got that whole ball rolling, which basically squashed whatever preconceived notions you had about anything that they had against each other.
Yep.
Because if Warrior was willing to do business, and Triple H was the one that did the reach out, like he did with Bruno Sammartino,
Triple H was the main reason Bruno Sammartino was finally back in the umbrella of the WWE, and that's what led to his Hall of Fame induction. Because, to be honest, you can't have a WWE Hall of Fame without Bruno Sammartino.
No. I mean, the Bruno sold out the Garden more times that you could probably have to do the number crunching on this one, Padgy, and I'm sure someone already has the number of times Hulk Hogan sold out the Garden versus the number of times Bruno sold out the Garden.
Yeah,
that would be a big question, because Hulk did the big shows, but how many times did Bruno sell out the Garden? Every fucking time. For what, 10, 15 years?
Because I do remember seeing it. Okay, so on a forum. Oh, I did pull it up. Okay, so for perspective sakes, how often Hogan sold out the Garden? We know Bruno at MSG thread that Bruno claims are exaggerated. So, okay, so they came down to it. Hogan is at 17 out of 32. He sold out 53% of his MSG main events.
Okay.
Bruno is 41 of 160, and 27% of his main events were sellouts.
See, the percentage-wise, Hulk had a higher percentage.
Yeah, Hulk had a higher percentage, but Bruno had
more appearances.
Bruno had quadruple the appearances.
All right. See, now, at which point you have to think, how were finances at that time? Were people even able to afford entertainment and all that other stuff? Okay. The argument is there if you wanted to crunch numbers and flip stuff around, like Pat G just said, quadruple the amount of appearances. However, Hulk had a higher percentage of sellouts even in the small runs that he did there. Shit.
Yeah.
Still, he got Bruno to the table.
Yeah, simple as that. It's just one of those things. It's just one of those things. So, let's see. I'm bringing up the article. So, Sammartino, this is when he passed from Schwarzenegger. So Sammartino became the world champion in second time in '73. His combined reigns were 4,040 days, which was almost double of Hogan's 2,185 and 8 combined reigns. But then you got to remember, at that time, when Hogan was champion, you had other guys that could be viable champions.
Yeah, Bruno was the only one.
Bruno was Bruno was it, pretty much. It's one of those things. You can't, Bruno had but then again, in the time when Bruno was wrestling and he was he was the draw. Like WWF, or well, the WWF and then WWF, they ran the Garden like twice a month, if not more.
Yeah.
Where,
I mean, they ran the Garden was basically their house show.
Yeah, the Garden was like their home. They're like home there. Where when Hogan was running,
Hey, y'all, we are going to take a short break from the show real quick just to pay some bills. Please do us a favor. If you like what you hear, like what you see, please drop a subscription or follow to gearnetwork.com, as well as the TTRP Turnbuckle Talk Radio podcast. That way you get notified when we have new episodes go up via your podcast services. Thank you. And now back to the show.
They would run the Garden, but Hogan was also allowing them to run in bigger cities: Chicago, LA, Miami, like Los Angeles, San Diego, bigger San Francisco. Like they didn't have to always be at MSG for a big show or payday.
Now, this is probably an interesting thought question / like fact to find. How many you'd have to do, like, at this point, a match by match comparison of amount of sellouts. Hogan probably had, of just general sellouts, more than Bruno had appearances. Because at one point, Hogan was on the road, 300 days a year? How many days a year were Bruno in that? Or did they just basically do like the little loop over and over again?
You know what? I don't. Okay, so
I'm throwing some deep questions out here today.
Oh, yeah,
I didn't even realize I had it in me today. I'm like, man, I'm kind of good.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this.
So, all right. Let me see. Okay, so the best I could find is Hulk Hogan's. What were Hulk Hogan's attendance numbers like on average in the 80s?
Okay.
This coming from Voices of Wrestling, quoting. I'm giving credit to the source. The article is, I looked at 19,000 plus WWF, WWE shows from the history of WWE.com from 1963 to 2013. Pulled the attendance numbers for the shows and descriptions, about 6,000 of the shows. Keep in mind, attendance quotes from this era hardly a scientific number because announced figures were exaggerated and he had no idea where the estimates came from. Obviously, Hogan was going to work the larger cities. The other crews went to the smaller markets. So it's likely to be skewed towards the tours that Hogan, as the top guy, was on. Estimated portion to show about 40% from 84 to 91. The smaller cities are most likely to be cities without estimates, so you're getting an incomplete picture. Exceptionally large events like pay-per-views are going to skew the numbers, which Hogan was very likely to work. So 84, 693 shows, 65 with attendance figures and Hogan matches, 94 with shows with attendance figures without Hogan matches. 85 was 668, 84 versus 169. 86 was 106 versus 185. 87, 123 versus 225. Then 88, 66 versus 191. 89, 88 versus 146. 90, 63 through 220. And then 91, 71 through against 130. Shows. Yeah.
It sounds like he made at least half of the appearances.
19 average attendance for Hogan. With average attendance for shows that Hogan was on was 10,804. Average shows for attendance without Hogan was 5,483. And this was from 1984 to 1991.
So just looking at that numbers wise, Hulk drew.
Yeah. So
way more.
Basically, Hulk. So if Hulk Hogan was on a show from 84 to 91, the average attendance nearly doubled.
I would just like to go on record once again and say this is probably the reason that he was the very first episode of the Evil original series on Peacock right now, because those numbers, and then if you look at the attendance record of an average Monday Night War Nitro, which was sometimes 17 to 20,000, 40,000 in the Georgia Dome for Goldberg versus Hogan. I mean, the numbers kept going up into that heel run. So you have to even think of the years from 94 to, 99, whenever Hogan was on, was there a bump?
So with history of wrestling once again, there's contrary to wrestling lore, San Martino did not sell out Madison Square Garden 187 times. And the fact over the course of his 26-year career, he only made 159 appearances at MSG. So, and then this coming from the Wrestling Observer. Let's see. The Italian San Martino actually had 127 stellar fights in MSG, of which he only got to fill 45 times.
Ooh. So less than half of his appearances.
Yes.
Way less.
Yeah. On the other hand, the book Wrestling in the Garden, The Battle for New York by Scott Teal and J. Michael Kenyon reported that San Martino actually sold out 41 times. It is not a remote figure to what Dave Meltzer raised. So, I don't think you can find a direct number for San Martino, as far as MSG or even sellouts. But according to the blog of Doom, which I just found, okay, most of the 160 matches, for a lot of the show. He did 160 matches in Madison Square Garden, was only pinned once, which ironically was his most famous match ever, and the most enduring match of that era with Koloff. Of those 140, of those 140 of the shows, you could say he main evented. This is an excerpt from the Wrestling Observer with Meltzer, where the numbers are probably exaggerated. So, for the most part, you're probably looking at Bruno having Bruno only selling out the Garden maybe 30% of the time, but having a ton more shows, because at that time, the Garden was their home arena. They didn't run elsewhere around the country. Hogan led the WWF and WWE to be able to run nationally, because
cable television.
Hogan was the draw that helped McMahon take WWF national and go everywhere outside of the Northeast. Look at WrestleMania 2. Hogan's the main event in a cage match against King Kong Bundy, but they're wrestling in Los Angeles, where you were able to run WrestleMania 2 ran from 3 different arenas.
Yeah. I mean, the first arena was in the Northeast, and that was Piper versus Mr. T in the boxing match.
Yep.
That was the main event there. And then the big main event in Chicago was the wrestlers versus football players battle.
Yeah,
royal,
in the Battle Royal. WrestleMania 2. Okay, so Uniondale, New York, Nassau Coliseum, Mr. T versus Roddy Piper in a boxing match. Rosemont, Illinois, Rosemont Horizon. Final match of that was Valentine and Beefcake versus the British Bulldogs for the tag team title. And then
Ozzy Osbourne was there.
Yeah, Los Angeles, California, which was the LA Memorial Sports Arena, Hogan versus King Kong Bundy in a steel cage match. Your results from that show, the Nassau Coliseum card had Paul Orndorff fighting the Magnificent Morocco to a double countout. Randy Savage defeating George Steele for the IC title. Jake Roberts defeating George Wells, and then Mr. T Piper in the boxing match. Rosemont Horizon saw Fabulous Moolah defeat Velvet McIntyre, women's title championship match. Corporal Kirkner defeating Nikolai Volkov in a flag match. Andre the Giant winning the WWF versus NFL Battle Royal, last eliminating Bret Hart. And then the British Bulldogs versus the Dream Team for the tag team titles. And then LA had Ricky Steamboat defeating Hercules Hernandez, Adrian Adonis defeating Uncle Elmer, Terry Funk and Hoss Funk defeating Tito Santana and JYD, and then Hogan defeating King Kong Bundy. So like
that's a good damn card.
And then the and the other participants, the NFL players that were in the Battle Royal, Jimbo Covert from the Chicago Bears, Pedro Morales, Tony Atlas, Ted Arcidi, Harvey Martin, former NFL player of the Dallas Cowboys, Danny Spivey, Hillbilly Jim, King Tonga, the Iron Sheik, Ernie Holmes, former player of the Pittsburgh Steelers, B. Brian Blair, Jim Brunzell, Big John Studd, Bill Fralick of the Atlantic Falcons, Jim Neidhart, Russ Francis of the San Francisco 49ers, Bruno Sammartino, and then William the Refrigerator Perry of the Chicago Bears.
And after the conversation that we just had about Triple H retiring, right? Yeah. I'm going to throw one at you. In that Battle Royal, Bruno Sammartino and Andre the Giant are in it, and they are living legends. And Bruno is at the end of his career as far as like in-ring competition.
Yep.
And he's in the main event Battle Royal out there. Yep. So it's like, and meanwhile, Triple H had the same kind of transition over the last couple of years.
Yeah. So Bruno's final WWF match was at a house show in Baltimore, August 29th, 1987, where he teamed up with Hulk Hogan to defeat King Kong Bundy and the One Man Gang. And then he was an outspoken critic of Vince K. McMahon and whatnot, and of course steroids and everything. And then finally, he worked as a commentator at UWF. He was made a special appearance at NWA Halloween Havoc, where he was the special guest referee in the Thunderdome cage match.
Thunderdome.
Ric Flair and Sting taking on Terry Funk and the Great Muta. Bruno had a hell of a career.
Yeah.
Same thing with Andre. It was one of those things where it was just Triple H is now essentially in the pantheon of some of these legends as far as like WWF, WWE career go.
Yeah.
And then it's crazy. It's just the man had a hell of a career, and he's still at the end of the day, and we've talked about it, how Vince McMahon is going to be 90 years old and still trying to produce shows.
Yeah, that's some good shit. Ha 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 ha.
At the end of the day, whenever Vince McMahon finally steps down from being in control, it's going to be Stephanie and Triple H. And to be completely honest, if with Triple H is in charge, I'm perfectly fine with where WWE may end up.
And also the fact that he's not having to be an in-ring competitor. This just kind of having a defibrillator in his chest at constant time now to keep his heart going.
Yep.
It's like, yes, that might change his lifestyle. Who knows how that is going to end up going. But the other thing is you have to look at it from, he doesn't have to get physical now. He can just produce. And if he's an on-screen character, he can have someone else do his dirty work, which gives you an opportunity to build new stars. You know, I mean, Triple H, if you gave Triple H, who now everyone knows can't fight, a heater, a bodyguard, whoever that dude is going to be, is going to end up being the next big thing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And what's funny is, like, of course, like, the Triple H retirement comes heading into WrestleMania, and of course the Hall of Fame, and the Undertaker being inducted by Vince McMahon. And of course, with the Hall of Fame, yes, there was the thing, like, I think it might have been Bully Ray on his show, where he stated, like, the Undertaker should have been the only guy going into the Hall of Fame, similar to Andre the Giant.
Yes.
Like, I agree with that point to a degree, because of the career that the Undertaker had. But the Hall of Fame is now one of those, like, key WrestleMania weekend events. So, like, just inducting one person would be kind of, like, not wrong or boring, but it would feel weird.
With the amount of talent that they have,
yes,
right, that they could be inducting into the Hall of Fame. Yeah. And we're getting Vader this year into the Hall of Fame, finally. You know, Shad is getting inducted with the Warrior.
Shad's getting the Warrior Award, which, like, you knew was going to happen. Like, and
we were just waiting for it.
Yeah. Like, and there were articles that were released as to why he didn't get it. Why he didn't get it when he passed back in 2020, or whatever. After not 2020, 2021, because he passed away after. But the thing is there was talks, but WWE gave it to Titus O'Neil just because of all the things that Titus was doing within the Tampa community.
Yeah, and they knew it was they knew they were going to do it. They just already had plans.
Yeah, it was no slight against Shad Gaspard at all. So, but it's going to be great seeing him have that. And then, of course, right now you have the Undertaker as the main focus. Vader is getting put in, which is fantastic. He deserves it. And then you have Queen Sharmell being put in, which this is where Pat G gets on his soapbox. Okay. Based on
I'm backing out of this one, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Peace.
Okay. So with the WWE Hall of Fame, okay, at this point, the WWE Hall of Fame is essentially a pro wrestling Hall of Fame, because there are multiple people that are in the Hall of Fame that were never a part of WWE in any way, shape, or form. Okay. But if you look at it, there are 15 total women in the WWE Hall of Fame. Okay. I'm going to give you those 15 women. The Fabulous Moolah, well deserved. Okay. Well deserved, because of the careers that she had. Okay. You also have, like, Sensational Sherry is in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
Sunny,
she better be.
Yeah, Sunny is in the Hall. Sunny is in the Hall of Fame. Okay, so you have Tori Wilson in the Hall of Fame. You have Jacqueline. You have Wendy Richter, well deserved. Ivory, well deserved.
I was there at that one. Yep.
Yeah, the Bella Twins. I'll give it to you. Okay, Molly Holly.
Definitely.
Phoenix, Mae Young, well deserved. Fabulous. Mention Moolah, mention Sherry. You have Lita. You have China. Deserved. Okay. Alundra Blaze.
China's in it, or is China by proxy?
China's in it as a member of DX.
Okay. All right. So you're counting her as a member of DX.
But she's a woman in the Hall of Fame, so she's being counted. Okay. Alundra Blaze.
I'm clarifying. Wanted to clarify.
Alundra Blaze, well deserved. Trish Stratus, absolutely well deserved. Okay,
she deserved her own win.
Nothing against Queen Shermel. Okay, she had a very good career in her role. Okay, former Nitro Girl, ballet for the artist formerly known as Prince Iakea. Queen Shermel with King Booker and everything.
Booker.
Okay. Where in the bloody freaking hell is Miss Elizabeth? Why is Miss Elizabeth not in the Hall of Fame when you have the likes of Tori and Sunny and the Bella Twins in there before her? Because, to be honest, Miss Elizabeth was the first female manager in pro wrestling. She kind of built a role in the 80s the same way that Sunny did in the 90s. I'm not going to disagree that Sunny's in the Hall of Fame because Sunny was very influential in the early 90s. And yes, Sunny had tons of shit problems outside of pro wrestling and personal life. Yes, absolutely. But so did Miss Elizabeth. Why the hell is Miss Elizabeth not inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame? Because the thing is Sunny, not a professional wrestler, but she is the most recognizable face in the WWE when it comes to female managers and ballets after Miss Elizabeth.
That is true.
Okay. I get there might be reasons as to why Miss Elizabeth is not in the WWE Hall of Fame. Maybe it is due to her family, maybe due to the details, what led to her passing and that. But why is she not? Why? Like, give me a reason. Someone.
The funny part about it is that I can't. I would have thought, and this is just me, when they inducted Macho Man Randy Savage, you can't induct Macho Man without Miss Elizabeth, right?
Absolutely.
And to the best of my knowledge, there is no agreement with the Poffo family and WWE to keep her. In fact, I would guarantee that Lanny would probably want Miss Elizabeth in the Hall of Fame because they were such an iconic duo, despite their divorce and everything.
Yeah.
But you look at iconic duos. Dude, they are like the couple in WWE. Like, you go back and you look at like real life power couples on television, Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth, Triple H and Stephanie. That's kind of been it.
Yeah. Yep. Like,
that's really been it.
Give me a reason. Someone give me a reason, because the thing is yes, Miss Elizabeth was not a pro wrestler. Okay. She was a valet. She was a manager. But the thing is she's the most recognizable wrestling manager as far as a woman goes.
Ever.
That was not a wrestler. Yes, Sensational Sherry was a manager in her later career, but she had a prime wrestling career.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You have no problem, like, the list of females that are in the WWE Hall of Fame, I'm not disagreeing with why they're in there. I'm not
No.
Okay, but if you're going to induct Queen Sharmell, who for the most part was not a wrestler, did she know how to take a bump? Yes, she did. Okay, but for the most part, she was not a wrestler. She was a valet. If you're going to induct Queen Sharmell as the valet manager of King Booker, why in the bloody hell is Miss Elizabeth not in the Hall of Fame yet? Someone give me a reason. Someone give me a reason, because they're, to me, outside of like her family may not wanting it, or the details that led to her passing, I cannot think of a valid reason why she's not in, especially over some of the women that have been inducted.
I would think that if I were to book it, I'd put her in next year with a good reason. With good reason, hear me out. One of the biggest moments in the career of the Macho Man Randy Savage took place in Los Angeles at WrestleMania 7. Ultimate Warrior versus Macho Man Randy Savage, career versus career. Randy Savage loses. Sensational Sherry, Hall of Famer, kicks the piss out of Macho Man after he loses. Like, Macho Man is all laid out. But the entire time, the crowd knew that Miss Elizabeth was watching ringside just down the aisle. So she jumps the rail, throws out Sensational Sherry. She got physical for one of the only times in her career. Remember that. She never got physical. She grabs Sensational Sherry by the hair, throws her out of the ring to have the Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth reunite at the end of that match. I would say if you were going to book it, especially in Los Angeles, the storytelling that they told with Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth, do it in LA, do it where she had probably the biggest pop of her career, and do it, almost 30 years later.
Yeah.
You got to think, it was WrestleMania. It was in 1991 when that match took place. You're looking at, 32 years later?
Yeah, just about.
Yeah. So why not do it?
So, yeah.
WWE, you steal all of our other ideas.
Yeah, I know. Like, if someone listens to this podcast and you steal our stuff, we're still waiting for our things.
Yeah, Bray Wyatt belt, please. You owe me one. Not
to mention when I messaged you to see if you wanted to record, hey, we were dead on about something.
Yes, we were. Oh my God. If you go back and you listen to last week's podcast, ladies and gentlemen, you will remember where Pat G, much like the Yankee Babe Ruth, called his shot, because Pat G said, and I quote, what they're going to do is they're going to have Xavier Wood come back and
Hey, y'all, we are going to take a short break from the show real quick just to pay some bills. Please do us a favor. If you like what you hear, like what you see, please drop a subscription or follow to gearnetwork.com, as well as the TTRP Turnbuckle Talk Radio podcast. That way you get notified when we have new episodes go up via your podcast services. Thank you. And now back to the show.
He's going to fill in the spot for Big E going into WrestleMania. Pat G, this is where you pat yourself on the back and say that you're a wrestling genius.
I don't know if I could use that term. The Lanny Poffo might sue me for slander.
The professor of professional wrestling. There we go.
Yeah.
It's true. You called it. Xavier Woods came back on SmackDown, saving Kofi's butt, being the call-in.
Yep. I knew it was going to happen. Yeah. Yeah. WrestleMania 7, March 24th, 1991.
Man, having autism has its gifts.
So, yeah. 30, it would be 31 years.
I think that'd be pretty dope. if they were going to do it. Also, you have to look at that entire story from introduction to end.
Yep.
You know, in the NWO days of WCW, when they were both in it, like they were a couple in '97 on screen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
even though they were not together in real life.
Yeah, like it was a hot commodity. People liked seeing Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth together. Yep. It was a team. It was an act. It was like Sonny and Cher, for lack of a better term. That I think that's the first time Sonny and Cher has ever been referenced on Turnbuckle Talk.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And this is the thing is, like, with WrestleMania, like, we are now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days away from WrestleMania. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Am I mad at the Hall of Fame class right now? No, because, like, honestly, if this year's Hall of Fame class is only the four members, is only the four members that are going in. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be mad with it. I'm not going to be mad at it because you get to spend a good amount of time on the story of Shad Gaspard.
Yeah.
You get to spend a good amount of time with the Undertaker.
And, you know, with this being Dallas, Texas, where Undertaker really got his start.
Yep.
With World Class. With this being, you know, a celebration of life for Shad, you know, you have Bader, who arguably was one of the best big super heavyweights in professional wrestling history. Okay. And you have Queen Sharmell, who during the ruthless aggression going into the modern era, she was one of the most notable female managers, along with one of the most noticeable gimmicks, King Booker, you know, heavyweight champion. I think that you're going to be able to get a little bit more out of the recipients and the Hall of Fame inductees as far as speeches go, especially with Undertaker, because I'm going to be very interested, especially considering the Medal of Honor playing dedication ceremony that he attended this week, where he was in a full black suit with his hair braided back and like looking as creepily professional as possible while still maintaining that Undertaker mystique, which is what he's been doing a lot lately in his interviews. Yeah. I would like to see that show up at WrestleMania at the Hall of Fame induction and actually give a speech. You know, he came in gimmick for the Paul Bearer induction, but I would like to see him actually talk, because I think that it would be interesting to hear him acknowledge like Vince and other Hall of Famers, because I can imagine you're going to have wrestlers showing up to the Hall of Fame this year that are working for other companies. Yeah.
And the thing is, with the WWE Hall of Fame, I look at it as not a straight WWE Hall of Fame, because there are people that didn't really have much of a career with WWE or had very little success in WWE when they were there, like the Rock and Roll Express and Fabulous Freebirds.
Yes.
But there's also inductees that have that will bring legitimacy to the Hall of Fame, like Bruno Sammartino. But there's also inductees that tend to question the quality of it, because back last year, after, and not to get political because we don't get political on the show, but after the events of January 6, 2021, with the Capitol riot, Mick Foley had asked Vince McMahon to remove Donald Trump from the Hall of Fame. Bret Hart, up until he attended the 2019 ceremony as a part of the induction for the Hart Foundation, stated that he wouldn't go to another ceremony until WWE inducts proper and deserving candidates. There had been questions about why Coco Beware was inducted before certain people there, or why people were getting inducted after their death or after their deaths. As far as and even there's been guys that have stated in the past, like, they would only do the Hall of Fame if they got paid. Like Sabu, like Scott Steiner, because there was rumors that WWE wanted to induct the Steiner brothers this year. And there was past stories of Scott Steiner going, the only way that I would accept it is if they paid me, because Vince McMahon gets paid for it. So why shouldn't I get a piece of the puzzle or a piece of the prize or whatever? It's one of those things where there's still, if you really look at who's inducted, and I can run down the list, like you have Andre, you have Freddie Blassie and Gorilla Monsoon and Bernie Ladd and Ivan Putski and the Grand Wizard, and like Pat Patterson, Cole Krosky, and then guys that were like I stated earlier, guys that like our parents grew up with, Big John Studd and Harley Race, and then like in the mid 2000s, that's when you started getting the guys that we grew up with: Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper, Bret Hart, Eddie Guerrero, Dusty Rhodes, Kurt Hennig, Ric Flair, Steve Austin, then Ted DiBiase, Shawn Michaels. But there are a number of omissions with the WWE Hall of Fame as far as people that were involved. I will say this: the Warrior Award was brought in because of the reconciliation between Triple H and the Ultimate Warrior and his induction. I like the aspect of the Warrior Award. I do. I like that.
Yes.
I like that aspect, which was for those who exhibited unwavering strength and perseverance. I totally I don't mind that. Like, I don't mind that at all.
And even WWE purposely created the celebrity wing. Yep. Because we have to remember, okay, and I know that there are some people who groan when the celebrity wing is brought up. But Let me throw a couple names out here for you. All right. Liberace, Cyndi Lauper, Muhammad Ali.
Cyndi Lauper's not in yet.
No, I'm just throwing these out there. Ready?
Yeah.
Mr. T. I will dare say WrestleMania 1 had enough star power in those few names at that time, because Muhammad Ali was still the greatest. Yep. Liberace was one of the best performers of that era. Okay, Cyndi Lauper was the face of MTV and Girls Just Want to Have Fun. And Mr. T was Clubber Lang / B.A. Baracus on one of the biggest shows of all time. So you can go back and say, oh, they're inducting certain celebrities. It's like, celebrity star power has always helped with WWE. So it needs to have a celebrity wing. My question is, if Pat G gets to ask a question like this, may I ask a question about the Hall of Fame?
Go right ahead.
Where the fuck is Motorhead? Where the fuck is Motorhead in the Celebrity Hall of Fame? I know John's going to be angry that he's got to edit me swearing, but where is Motorhead? If Kid Rock can be in the Hall of Fame, why can't Motorhead? Motorhead is synonymous with Triple H and Evolution, and that entire presentation from Cerebral Assassin to Evolution to King of Kings.
Okay, all right.
Motorhead is left out of the Hall of Fame.
So as you brought up the point as to Miss Elizabeth getting inducted next year because of Los Angeles, Motorhead goes in the year Triple H goes in.
Oh, that would be okay. I'll shut up now. I'll shut up. WWE, you just heard that. Induct both of them at the same time.
Okay. So speaking of the celebrity wing right now, so you have Pete Rose, who was inducted in 2004. William the Refrigerator Perry, inducted in 2006.
Yep.
Bob Uecker in 2010.
And Bob Uecker was a good one because he was involved with WrestleManias 2 and 3.
Memorial appeared at both WrestleMania 3 and 4. And his last
right, because he got choked by Andre.
Featuring Uecker was when Andre the Giant hilariously throttled him during an interview segment.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at that one. I just had the visual of Bob Uecker's face as Andre was shaking him back and forth.
Yep.
And that is forever in my mind.
Yep. Drew Carey in 2011.
Because of the Royal Rumble stint.
Yeah, which when they inducted Drew Carey, I was like, yo, that's legit, because I'm sorry, I laughed my ass off with Drew Carey in the Royal Rumble. Like,
he tried to slip Kane a 20.
Yep.
Come on.
Mike Tyson in 2012, which I completely legitimate, because at that point, the minute Mike Tyson came into the WWE, that's when the momentum shifted during the Monday Night Wars.
Mike Tyson also, and this is something that I will say about Tyson. I have this conversation at the gym all the time. Imagine Mike Tyson today running into 18-year-old Mike Tyson.
Oh, like
Mike God. Mike Tyson when he was young was scary. Was an animal. Like,
it's essentially one of those things of, if I could go back and tell my 18-year-old self, give him advice and know everything that I know now, like how different life would be.
And Mike Tyson, in 98, although he had already lost and, had certain incidences with the ear biting and stuff. Yeah. And was known as being like an unpredictable person. That was a perfect fit because first off, he was a wrestling fan, which you found out in his Hall of Fame speech when he went off about Bruno Sammartino and Pedro Morales, because he grew up in the city. He grew up in that era of wrestling where Triple H would have been a fan. So when he came in 98 at the Royal Rumble and then had the altercation with Steve Austin, that made WrestleMania 14 the event of the year.
Oh, absolutely.
The buy rates for the amount that they paid Mike Tyson, they made back tenfold that entire year following because everything skyrocketed after that. So Mike Tyson being in the celebrity wing, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. You have Donald Trump in 2013, which at that point it was a less of a big deal because Trump was known as a longtime friend of Vince McMahon and the McMahon family.
Also Atlantic City for WrestleManias 4 and 5.
Yes.
And the Donald Trump hair incident in WrestleMania 23.
Most notable was 2007's Battle of the Billionaires at WrestleMania 23. He was heavily booed at the MSG at MSG crowd throughout the Hall of Fame speech, but as of course, due to his time as U.S. president, his induction's kind of been more controversial as to why he's not been removed. But I digress. 2014 saw Mr. T and Mr. T's induction speech is perhaps most well known for the star referencing his own mother more than 70 times.
That was just as good as Mike Tyson saying that Dusty Rhodes was black exploitation and John Cena was he thought John Cena was really black, but then he saw Dusty and he goes, no, that's black. Yeah. You just watch that speech now and you're like, he was so stoned.
Yep.
It now. You're like, he was baked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then Arnold Schwarzenegger in 2015.
Which makes perfect sense.
Snoop Dogg in 2016. And then Kid Rock in 2018. According to the little synopsis, made several WWE appearances leading up to his Hall of Fame induction. Performed live more than once at WWE events, including WrestleMania 25. His song American Badass was used for The Undertaker's entrance music. and his cover of ZZ Top Legs was used for Stacy Keibler. That I did not know.
Yeah.
Did not know that. And then William Shatner in 2020, and then Ozzy Osbourne last year.
Yeah. I mean, Ozzy needed to go.
Okay, so I'm going to say this. If there's a celebrity inducted this year or into the WWE Celebrity Wing, and it's not Cyndi Lauper,
who
is it?
Not Cyndi Lauper.
Yep.
A celebrity, Chuck Norris.
Interesting.
I can tell you why. I have facts. When The Undertaker returned after being put into a casket by Yokozuna and others in 1994.
The fact that it took 10 men to bury the dead man.
The fact that it took 10 men to bury the dead man, and he still rose from the ashes like a phoenix.
Yep.
When he came a call-in at Survivor Series that year to go at Yokozuna, who was the special enforcer on the outside in San Antonio, Texas at that show? None other than Walker, Texas Ranger himself, Mr. Chuck Norris. And he roundhouse kicked Jeff Jarrett in the solar plexus and did the classic Chuck Norris pose. How badass would it be if The Undertaker's only backup on this planet other than Kane was Chuck Norris and he got inducted this year?
I wouldn't be mad at it. Like I wouldn't be mad at it.
No. I think that is without a doubt probably the most badass way of doing the Hall of Fame induction this year.
I would not be mad at it. Oh, hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on. I just found something. Oh, okay. Chuck Norris made only one WWE appearance, excluding an interview at WrestleMania 7, where he served as special enforcer for Undertaker versus Yokozuna casket match in '94 Survivor Series. Then Walker, and then karate kicked Jeff Jarrett and held Bam Bam Bigelow and King Kong Bundy at bay to delight of the San Antonio crowd. Yeah, it looks like a lot of. Okay, so this is coming from Bleacher Report, an article that was written 10 years ago, April 2nd, 2011.
Mm-hmm.
The top 10 celebrities most deserving of the honor for the Celebrity Hall of Fame. Number 10, Motorhead. Number 9, Ozzy, which Ozzy's already in.
Mm-hmm.
Number 8, Bob Barker. Number 7, Chuck Norris. Number 6, Lawrence Taylor. Which, you know what? I wouldn't be opposed to Lawrence Taylor.
No.
Floyd Mayweather. Tyson's already in. Mr. T's already in. Donald Trump is in. Cyndi Lauper. Okay, so on this list, Cyndi Lauper, Floyd Mayweather, Lawrence Taylor, Chuck Norris, Bob Barker, and Motorhead. Which I will say this: Motorhead goes in when Triple H goes in.
Yeah,
that makes the most sense. Motorhead goes in when Triple H goes in. If Cyndi Lauper isn't the Celebrity Hall of Fame inductee this year, I would be perfectly fine with Chuck Norris or Lawrence Taylor, because Lawrence Taylor had a main event match at a WrestleMania, and it was a damn good match.
Yeah.
So, like, I think there's going to be one more. They will announce one more inductee, and it will be the Celebrity Wing inductee.
Because they they need to have it. It's kind of like a part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like it's like because they've had a celebrity wing inductee for the last few years. So, but as we get close to wrapping up here, so this, of course, we have tons of, oh my God, so much wrestling this upcoming weekend. With the Super Card of Honor.
Yes.
April 1st, 2022. Right now, it is the matches that are been announced. Okay. You're going to have Josh Woods versus Wheeler Yuta for the ROH Pure Championship. Jay Lethal versus Lee Moriarty. Swerve Strickland versus Alex Zane. The Briscoe brothers versus FTR for the ROH Tag Team Championships. And then Jonathan Gresham versus Bandito. Winner takes all to determine the undisputed ROH World Champion. There has been other discussions as to what's going to be on the card, because it is going to be available for purchase through the Fight TV app or whatever, as well as your pay-per-view service providers. I know Tony Khan has said that Deonna Purrazzo will be there defending the women's championship. I don't know against who. There's nothing been announced. If she defends the women's championship, do you believe it's against someone from AEW or someone else?
I don't want it from AEW. I kind of want Tony Khan to keep both entities separately. I would like to see someone come in and do like, is Chelsea Green available? Like, is Hot Mess available to do it?
Maybe,
because with the streak that Matt Cardona has been on.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that would be like an awesome match in and of itself, and then bring that element in to make ROH its own thing. Where the NWA champion just walked in the door.
Yeah, it's very true, very true. And then, of course, you have WrestleMania, which is going to like there's right now there's so much like moving around and everything. Because
do we even have a card yet for both nights? The only thing we really know is the main events and Stone Cold on Saturday.
Yeah. So right now, the Stone Cold Steve Austin KO segment is scheduled for night one. They don't know the position of it. It looks like it's going to be last because they don't want it to. They don't want it to run the risk of burning the crowd out, or putting it like say between one match and then Charlotte versus Ronda as the main. And have the crowd like kind of burned out from the KO Steve Austin segment for the Charlotte Ronda match. Right now, it doesn't. There's not like been a official card said. What it looks like, what a lot of places are reporting in this, and this coming from CBSSports.com, is night one will feature Becky versus Bianca for the Raw Women's Championship, Miz and Logan Paul versus the Mysterios, McIntyre versus Happy Corbin, the Usos defending the tag titles versus Boogs and Nakamura, Edge versus AJ Styles, Charlotte versus Ronda, and then Steve Austin on the KO show. And then day two, we'll have Roman versus Brock, title versus title, women's tag title match, Zelina, Carmella versus Naomi, Sasha, Rhea, Liv, Natalya, Shayna, McAfee versus Austin Theory, Zayn versus Knoxville, and then RK Bro versus the Street Profits versus Alpha Academy. And then also you're going to have the prediction, which other matches that have been rumored is Balor versus Damian Priest, Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes.
See, I'm surprised they did not make the McAfee thing a tag match just to get more in.
I think what's going to happen with McAfee Austin Theory match is Vince McMahon is going to be the special referee.
Yeah.
Like Vince McMahon is going to be the special guest referee. Priest and Balor and Priest will happen. What I think is going to happen is you're going to have the women's tag title match get bumped to the pre-show on one of the days, and that's going to get replaced with Balor and Priest because you're going to have the Demon.
Yeah, you need to have a payoff, and it can't happen on a Raw.
And once again, we cannot have a TTRP without mentioning the Demon Finn Balor.
No, we need to always do it just like a Bray Wyatt mention every now and then.
We've had both, and we've had a CM Punk mention. We have covered the trifecta.
All right, bing, 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 winner, winner, chicken dinner. We made it through the podcast by getting all three. All right, so that's not a bad setup for the card.
No,
that's actually not bad at all.
With Edge and AJ Styles being on night one. Night two is going to see Seth Rollins come out with the open challenge, and it's going to be Cody.
Now, I thought that he was going to be doing that on Raw. Like he's not, or do you think they're going to just be like, you know what? You've got a match at WrestleMania, but we're not telling you who.
Well, what's funny is Seth Rollins actually tweeted out, let me bring it up. So when did he tweet that? So Seth Rollins tweeted about 23 hours ago. So he shared a screenshot of a text message from VM, which is Vince. So I'm assuming Vince McMahon. Mm-hmm. I messaged today at 1:31 p.m. So yesterday around 1:30. Seth, someone from my office is going to be reaching out to you to set up a meeting at corporate headquarters. I want you in my office at 9 a.m. on Monday. So, and he tweeted out, ha 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 ha, of course, with the laughy face emoji. If Seth Rollins doesn't say, I'm going to be at Mania, I'm going to do an open challenge a la John Cena from a couple of years ago, I could see Seth Rollins coming out during night 2 of WrestleMania going, this is garbage, da 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 da. I don't care. I'm staying in this ring. I'm issuing an opening challenge, and I don't even care if someone has to cross a forbidden door to do it.
Yeah.
And then boom, forbidden door word hits, and then all of a sudden Cody Rhodes appears.
That could arguably be the pop of the night, which leads me to my post WrestleMania question. Like, is Cody Rhodes the one to take down the tribal chief?
You want to start a war? I
do. I want to start a war.
Dan has chosen violence today.
I am legit that guy who is going to walk into the room and say, yes, Cody Rhodes deserves to beat the guy who's been champion for over almost 600 days. Absolutely. Dan
woke up and chose violence today.
I chose violence and death, and anyone who wants to bring it to my doorstep, the argument is open because in my opinion,
the American Nightmare defeating the tribal chief and ending the 600-day reign.
Think about it.
Oh God, wrestling fans! Oh my God, no, I am thinking about it. wrestling fans would have a heart attack.
Wrestling fans would freak the fuck out, first and foremost.
Yes,
okay,
would.
They would lose their shit. They would the reason that they would lose their shit is because, first off, as we have talked about, Cody did not hold the major title in AEW.
Nope.
So then the rumors would start. Oh, it's because he couldn't be the champion. Oh, which would get him heat from the crowd, right? Mm-hmm. Because at this point, Roman Reigns is pretty much close to a baby face. Okay, he's like Rock in 2000. He's transitioned.
Yeah.
Okay. He's so cool being bad that he's cool. Okay. Yep. So now, who do you bring in to go against him? What heel could you do? Imagine the guy who just went out after 6 years, and during that 6-year period, built himself one hell of a reputation, one hell of a career renaissance. Okay. Went toe to toe with you on several occasions, sold out an arena on a Labor Day weekend when Vince McMahon himself said, "Oh, I want to put it on Labor Day weekend." That never sells, and selling out in like less than a half hour.
Yep.
Okay. And then creating an entire wrestling, company to go against it.
Oh God. Oh yeah. No. You know what? That's where we're gonna leave it, because you know what? Because just let the hatred and violence simmer for the next week. Because come next week Monday, when we do our post WrestleMania show and breakdown and Raw breakdown and everything. Oh my God. Like Monday Night Raw, Cody comes out and challenges Roman for the title.
You're welcome.
And becomes like Roman defeats Brock, has both titles. Cody shows up on WrestleMania, defeats Seth Rollins, walks out on Monday Night Raw and goes, "I want the Tribal Chief tonight," and defeats him and wins both titles on the Raw after WrestleMania. The hatred and explosion of the internet wrestling community will happen.
You're welcome.
We can't top that at this point. We can't.
Nope.
So, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for tuning in once again. Please, if you're listening to the service, whether you're listening to Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you'll find as podcasts at, please hit the subscribe button for us so you know when the episode drops. Follow us as well on the social medias, TBTR Podcast on Twitter, and then, of course, Facebook.com, Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast. For Dan, this is Pat G. This has been the TTRP. Be safe, be kind, be healthy, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Thank you for listening to the Turnbuckle Talk Radio podcast today. We appreciate and thank you for your continued listenership. If you'd like what you hear, please follow us or subscribe to the podcast via gearnetwork.com/TTRP, where you can access the show via Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast services where your podcasts can be found. Please follow us as well on social media at Facebook.com/Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast and on Twitter at TBTR Podcast. We also ask you to please hit the subscribe button so you get the notification when the podcast drops a new episode every Monday at 6:05 Eastern Standard Time.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.